Michael, I Am Giant podcast in conjunction with Andy's Man Club is a wee special episode for our Brew Chat campaign, which we're about to launch in March. So thanks for joining us.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And great to be on with Andy's Man Club.
So obviously we've spoken to each other over the years with just different things, putting stickers on your cars and that, which we'll talk about. So do you just want to give us a brief overview of who you are and what it is you do and why you're working with Andy's Man Club?
Of course. My name is Michael Johnston. I'm a racing driver in my spare time. I've had a couple of years experience. We'll probably go into that a wee bit later on. But I'm from the Highlands of Scotland, and I've grown up, and there's been a big problem with men's mental health in the Highlands of Scotland. I moved down to Edinburgh. I met my wife, and she actually works in mental health, and she refers to Andy's Man Club regularly. So when the racing took off, we thought Andy's Man Club was the perfect partnership, especially in a male-orientated sport.
Yeah, and quite demanding as well, and a lot of pressure put on, especially young guys, young girls coming through that sort of industry. And it's quite a high-pressured environment.
Absolutely, it really is. And I mean, it's something like 73% of viewers are male as well. Mm-hmm. So it's good to maybe get a bit of exposure for Andy's Man Club. And if people come and ask me, which happens quite a lot actually, what is Andy's Man Club about? Mm-hmm. It's good that people want to know more. So definitely giving Andy's Man Club a bit of publicity, which is great for getting people along to sessions.
Yeah, which definitely helps us, do you know what I mean? And it's something that we've said over the years, that any awareness that we can raise and potentially save someone's life by just having a conversation about a sticker or the hashtag on the back of your new car, which we can talk about in a bit. But I suppose growing up in Highland Scotland, it's quite rural, it's quite a lonely place sometimes, and a lot of communities across the whole of the UK that people tend to be quite insular and don't want to talk about these things. So I know the way I was brought up, that big boys don't cry and you man up and don't talk about it. So I'm assuming it's the sort of same for yourself.
Aye, totally. There's not a lot to do in the Highlands, and especially if you are like not in a wee town or whatever. Like I wasn't. My family had a house maybe a few miles from the nearest town, and so there's a lot of people that are spending a lot of time by themselves, young men and women, that is. And there's a big problem up there with speaking out or being able to talk about their mental health, and so that was something quite close to my heart, because I've not been directly affected by death by suicide or any other like awful mental health related incidents, but I have a lot of friends that have, so I felt Andy's Man Club was the perfect charity to promote, because it is something close to my heart, and I know that a lot of my friends are really thankful that I can do something to kind of promote the charity and promote people to speak out.
And I think that's important, and something that I do every day in my job is just encouraging guys to open up and talk, and the women as well, because the women have a big part to play in all these guys' lives walking through the doors. And every 2 hours a man dies by suicide in the UK, which is absolutely frightening. So the more we can do, and again, just finding different ways to have these conversations. And I think it's brilliant that you're on here helping us raise awareness for the Brew Chat campaign. So obviously growing up, you had to find other things to do. So is that how you kind of got into racing? So how did it start? Because I watched the programme the other night, and there was folk racing tractors and stuff like that. So it was maybe not as agriculture as that. But how did you get into the racing side of it?
Well, Alex, maybe not too far wrong from that, but we had sit on lawnmower when I was a wee boy and stuff, and I used to fart about in the garden and that. But I wanted to race cars since I was, like I said, a wee boy. There's a couple of go-kart tracks up north, but it just everything like that is so expensive. Like if you want to enter a championship or do anything, even relatively small, it's still super expensive. So, I'm from a normal family. We didn't have that kind of we weren't able to spend that much money on like motorsport or anything like that. So I just watched it. I love watching Formula One. I watched British touring cars and British GT. So to be honest, it was when I started driving at 17. I had this Toyota RAV4, this little 4x4, ridiculous car to have as your kind of first car. But a neighbour was selling it, so we bought it, and I used to take pals off-roading in it. So when I kind of learned car control and like how to get the car sideways and catch it and slide it around and that. And then I'd come home and say to my dad, I think I'm really good at this. I think I'm good at this driving thing. He was like, of course you do, son. You know, everyone thinks that. So that's kind of where I think I probably realised that I was, I actually really enjoyed driving, like more so than the average person. And it was something that I wanted to pursue. But without any sponsorship or any money, it's very difficult.
Yeah. And again, going back to, like, obviously it's sponsorships, so you've got logos all over the car, and I think that's why it means a lot to ANDYSMANCLUB that you're giving up that space to promote something that we're all passionate about, which is absolutely massive. Yep. So in terms of getting into the racing, so you've started in your RAV4, just sliding about the fields and stuff. What was your next steps? What did you go into karting? Did you go straight into racing cars, or where did you get into it?
So maybe 10 years later, after I'd worked, I'd gone to university here in Edinburgh, I'd got my first few like proper office jobs and things. I worked in finance, and I saved up, for a long time. I then met my wife, and it was kind of either that we were going to buy a house together or we were going to go racing. And I said we should buy a house, and she said let's go racing. So I'd really owe a lot of it to her, because I wouldn't be here without that encouragement, and that she's my biggest supporter, also my biggest critic if she doesn't think I'm performing. But we put some of the money into, it was a competition run by Ginetta, who are a Yorkshire-based racing car manufacturer. They had a competition to win like a funded season, so I didn't have enough money to pay for a whole season of racing. And Ginetta did like a scholarship kind of idea that you did a knockout round, sort of championship style thing, and then you'd win a funded season if you were good enough, were fast enough. And out of 300 drivers, I finished second. So I missed out on the scholarship, but I did a test with Ginetta and it went really well. So I thought, right, I am good enough to do this. If I put a decent amount of money, of my own money, into this, it's not going to be for nothing. Like, I'm not going to be running around at the back. So again, another big decision. My wife Jen and I thought, right, we'll put some money into racing. So I was supposed to do the first race in April 2020, but obviously the start of 2020 was kind of written off, as we all know. So in August 2020, I went down to Oulton Park and I did my first ever race in a Ginetta. It was a tiny little Ginetta. It's like the bottom of the ladder of sort of national racing. And I finished third in my first ever race. So it went really well. It was terrifying at first. I actually remember in practice, I went out for the first time, and everyone else had done loads of testing in practice, and I went out and all these cars were going like zooming past. I thought, I've really messed up here. Like, I should not have paid all this money. I'm going to come back to my wife at the end of this, or she was my girlfriend at the time, and say, like, we've wasted loads of money. I'm really sorry. Like, this is awful. Like, I really didn't enjoy it for the first 10, 15 minutes. And I remember I started pushing, and I had a big spin. I mean, like, these cars only go up to 110, 120, and I maybe had a spin at about 80, 90 miles an hour. Like, it was quick. And I remember going backwards into the grass, and I got the car started up again and went back on the circuit, and I was like, right, that's me reset. And after that, loved it. It was like I needed to kind of have a moment before my mind was settled, and I thought, right, that's the limit. Now you just need to drive up to that. And then after that, it went really well. But very quickly ran out of money. So I did one race weekend, which was 3 races in the one weekend. Ran out of money. So I kind of watched as my peers and my fellow competitors like continued on in the championship. And then I found a company to sponsor me for the final round in October, and that went really well too. And so that was my first year in motorsport. I did 2 race weekends, 6 races, best result of 3rd, but I knew that it was something that I wanted to pursue.
And obviously that mindset's massive, eh? Like you've taken that spin, the mistake, to reset and go through. So what was going through your head just as you were going off the track? Because I've crashed cars and not going as fast as you were, but I've crashed cars. And everything goes in slow motion, eh? And things start flying about the cockpit, and you're seeing your wife's phone flying past you, and you're just like, oh shit, what's going on? So what's going through your mind? Because you're not the only one on the road going around that circuit, eh? So there's other cars flying past you. And I remember we've done some work with a young lad doing the motorbikes down at Knockhill, and I remember watching him come off it, and I'm just thinking, what's he thinking about? Do you know what I mean? That's flying through there, and it's the same when you're in a car, isn't it? Everyone slows down, and you start processing it. And like you were saying, have I done the right thing here? So what was going through your head as you were spinning before you had that sort of reset moment?
Well, because I'd funded it myself, I knew that if I hit anything, it was going to cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you got this massive insurance excess, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to pay for that. And that was genuinely something. It's like you said, it does go in slow motion. Like the car gets away from you, and you know that you've lost control, and you're spinning and you're going backwards, and you're like, right. In my mind, you're like, right. Hopefully, someone doesn't hit me, or I don't hit something like a barrier, which didn't happen. Fortunately, I just landed in the grass. And then after you've kind of realised, right, I've stopped, I'm safe, just trying to get the car back on the track. And it was funny. It was just like, it was honestly like a switch in my mind. This is too fast. I've gone too fast. I've pushed too hard. I'm trying too hard. I'm over driving the car. Now that's me. I know what to do now. I obviously knew that I had 1% of talent. I knew that there was something in there that I could push a car hard, and it would, I could push it as hard as it could go, or I could push myself as fast as I could go. And that was when I found that. So honestly, it was more, could I afford this? And also, even afterwards, when I came back into the pits later on after the session finished, can I afford to do this full stop? If something like that happens again, or you get to turn 1 of the first race and you have an accident and that's your weekend done. You've wasted all this money it's like house deposit money. We're talking serious money. But yeah, it was.
It's not just you either, is it? There's other people relying on you to finish that race and score points or get up the rankings and stuff like that as well. And obviously that's where the sponsorship comes in again. So the better you're doing, the better money you can charge for sponsorship, isn't it? So it's a vicious circle. So going back to mindset then, because everything I've done over the last few years, just going to Andy's Man Club and talking about mental health, and then listening to podcasts, now doing podcasts and reading books, it's all about my mindset and what I do to keep me fit. And that's something we do at the group. We encourage guys to answer some of these positive questions so they can start refocusing and rewiring their brain to think differently. So is there certain things that you do to keep that mindset, especially obviously a race weekend? It can be quite daunting. There's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure again, sponsorships, money, crashing cars, you're letting other people down or that. What do you do to focus on the day of a race, for example?
Yeah, I mean, skipping on a bit to last year, 2023, I was in the British GT Championship, which is one of the most prestigious racing championships in Europe. It's live on Sky Sports, a lot of pressure, got a sponsor that's backing me. He's put a lot of money in. Like you said, it's a lot of pressure. This is completely genuine. I'm not just saying this for Andy's Man Club, but I speak to my friends, I speak to my wife, I speak to my family. I'm fortunate that I find it quite easy to talk about my, if I'm feeling slightly anxious or nervous, or I can talk about feeling a bit low, and how I can get around that. I mean, when you're in the season and maybe a race weekend hasn't gone your way, you have a real dip. We'll drive. There's a long drive home back to Scotland from some of these races. I mean, Brands Hatch is about 9 or 10 hours drive. So I usually do that with my wife, and in 2022, before I got into British GT, I did actually have a crash, and it was relatively serious. And it's a long drive home, but if you have to speak to someone, and that's why I think, again, Andy's Man Club is just perfect for what I'm doing, the kind of person I am, because I'm very fortunate, like I said, that I've got a wife that I live with. I've lived with her for years. I can tell her exactly how I feel about things. I can tell my friends. I speak to my friends a lot, and if you don't have that kind of availability, like friends or family that are around you, it's so important to go and speak to, go to a group like Andy's Man Club and, share how you're feeling, because that's the most important step to feeling better and healing, So honestly, I speak to people. If I'm feeling the pressure, if I'm struggling a wee bit, if we haven't performed properly, if I don't feel like I've performed properly, I'll talk about that to someone. If it's, and my wife sometimes has to listen to me for 10 hours talking about a race weekend, but she's, she feeds back to me, and she's, she listens to me, and it's vice versa as well. Like, she works in mental health, and she has a very challenging job. She works with people with a significant amount of trauma, so I listen to her. So it's a reciprocal relationship like that. But I speak, I talk to people. That's my main takeaway.
And that's what we want as Andy's Man Club. Guys like yourself will never come through the door of Andy's Man Club, and we totally appreciate that. But the fact that we can sit and have conversations, and you can sit and have a conversation with not just your wife, but your friends and your teammates and your mates, you can talk about these things. And I think Luke's always said that. We know that there's guys that'll never walk through the door, but knowing that it's there and knowing what we do can then encourage you to have that conversation in everyday walks of life here, which is something that we're trying to do with the BREW Chat campaign, which we keep banging on about. So, and we'll go through some of the questions and that in a wee bit. But for me, it's like, obviously, I watch all the programs. I watch the Drive to Survive, and I've watched the Indy 500 one and all these things, and the Bubba documentary, and it is just fascinating to see the competitiveness. And it's very competitive, and there's especially if you watch I don't know if you watch the Indy cars, there's a lot of violence in that as well. Do you know what I mean? Both cars and physical violence, and if they follow each other, start hitting each other with the helmets and stuff like that. But the majority of them are still mates. So do you get on with everyone? Is there guys there that you just, if you see them coming out in your rearview mirror, you think this guy's taking me out, or I need to get out his road, or because obviously I've watched the touring cars and there is a wee bit of a bumping, you call it, or something. Do you know what I mean? They're right on your backside. So what's it like? What's that atmosphere like? That, I suppose, competitiveness, isn't it?
Yeah, I would say generally there should be less contact in the sort of racing I do, like GT cars. Like, for example, I race a BMW.
Which is very nice, by the way. I was looking on Instagram. It's like, I was well jealous.
I don't know when this is going out, but we might have announced our latest step up in British GT. So I think you'll like this next car even more. It's even more racy. But yeah, these cars they're like, touring cars are obviously very like road cars, and the car I'm racing this year is much more of a race car, specifically built for that. So they're very delicate, there's lots of winglets and things that can break off. So contact is not looked upon favourably, but it does happen, But you're absolutely right, there is drivers with reputations that they'll barge their way through, they'll be dirty the way they race. I don't think I've got that kind of reputation. I have had contact, whether it was my fault or not. I've never been penalised for contact, touch wood. So I think I'm generally quite a clean racer, but the way the championship works in British GT, and typical of sports car and GT style racing, is that it's multi-class. So there's faster cars and slower cars on the track at the same time. It's effectively 2 races on track at the same time. There's a podium for each class. So you could be, for example, last year I raced in GT4 and I finished 14th overall, but that was actually first in the GT4 class because the other cars in front are in the GT3 class, which is faster. But because it's like that multi-class aspect, and some cars are faster and slower, there's contact there. So sometimes last year I'd see a certain driver coming getting close to me and he's going to lap me in the GT3 class, and I would just get out of his way because I knew that
it's not your race, is it? You hear that all the time, especially in the Formula One. Look, you're not racing him; you're racing them. Just let them go. So that must be difficult as well, though. Do you know what I mean? I'm very competitive, right? Doesn't matter what it is, whether I'm playing Mario Kart with the kids or Call of Duty or 10-pin bowling. I've got to win. So I suppose having that again, that's a different mindset to say, right, well, I know I'm not racing these 14 other cars. Do you know what I mean? But I'm racing the 14 boys behind me. So that must be quite difficult to get in. Like you say, when that boys wasn't, and there's a big difference in power in there. So this guy's actually flying past you at a rate of not say that must be quite difficult.
It is. I suppose because you just absolutely know that they are not, that you're just not going to beat those cars, because I mean they're 10 seconds a lap faster than you. They're so much faster that it's fine. You can kind of get your head around that. But a kind of good example of what you're saying is I did the Dubai 24-hour race in January, and we finished first in class. It was really well. Like, it was my first race in a GT3 spec car, so it was the first time I'd driven a car so fast. Quite a nerve-wracking weekend. It was very serious, and the car is quite difficult to get used to, a lot of procedures. But the way the tyres were in the race, you do like an hour and a half stint in the car, so you'd be in the car for an hour and a half. And at the start of this, your like time in the car, your stint, the tyres would be like, brand new, really good, loads of grip. And by the end, you'd be like, actually, the car would be like sliding around. You'd be 3 or 4 seconds off the pace because the tyres were just dead. So sometimes you'd see another fellow competitor coming behind you, like closing in rapidly. And you're like, oh my God, like, am I just terrible? It's like that like you feel like you should block them because like it's like they're just faster, and you need to like, they're going to overtake you, but you have to get in the mindset that because it's so long, like a 24-hour race is just no point, like you said, in getting involved in that fight. I'm at the end of my stint, my tyres are dead. They're, going quickly because their tyres are brand new. You have to, right, okay, it's a long race. And even in British GT, we do 2 or 3 hour races. So it's like sometimes you get that mismatch, and your competitive spirit, you've just got to quell it a little bit, So yeah, I can totally get that, but it's because it's a strategic race rather than like a sprint.
And that's an art in itself, when you watch, because obviously Formula One's back soon, and you see them all strategise and stuff like that. So for those that don't know, because obviously when you're doing the shorter races, so like the British GT, that's just you in the car, but whereas the 24 hours, there's other drivers in there as well, isn't there?
It is actually a 2-driver car in British GT as well.
Right,
yeah, that's right. So in Ginettas, I think that's probably what you're thinking of. That was a 1-driver car. And they were like sprint races, like 20 to 30 minutes. And even then, that is like knackering, like really tiring. Yeah. Because the car gets up to like 40, 50 degrees inside. So like fitness is, like a key thing in these championships. And then in British GT, it's a Pro-Am championship. And I'm classed as an amateur driver. And then I have a pro driver, professional. And the professional drivers are typically faster than the amateurs, and that's kind of the idea. It means that the amateur driver usually does the first hour or hour and a half or whatever, and then the pro finishes the race. And they're expected to bring the car home, like no crashes, and be really fast. So yeah, it's a great championship. It's fantastic to watch, and because there's that mismatch between the GT4s and the GT3s, there's always action. Like Formula One, I'm an avid racing fan, obviously.
It can be quite boring, can't it?
Exactly, yeah.
You're just sitting there hoping for 3 hours there's going to be a crash, and you're like, go on.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, it's totally
or rain or something, yeah.
Yeah, just something to stop, just to spice it up. So.
Exactly, but British GT is like super close. There's fights up and down the field. Yeah, it's really good.
So obviously you touched on fitness there, and I see you drinking your water and stuff. So what kind of? I used to work in the gym in the jail, and so fitness has been a big part of it. And I've got my Peloton bike and that there, and just signed up to the ANDYSMANCLUB half marathon in the Great North Run. So all these things are important to me, and it's about keeping me mentally well as well as physically well. So what kind of fitness regime training do you do? Is it all gym based? Is it obviously you need a lot of strength and conditioning, especially in your neck and stuff like that? So what does a normal gym session look like?
So even before racing was even on the horizon, I always thought I always wanted to keep fit because one, it's good for your physical health, and like you say, two, it's good for your mental health. Like especially at the start, I hated running. Like I'm actually pretty well built to be like an endurance runner, but I just couldn't stand it. So I played a lot of football, and I still do play football. I love football, and going back to what you said earlier, that probably is a good competitive edge for me and like a good release. But to present day, I run all the time, and sometimes I do hate it. And for example, today it's like a wee bit windy here in Edinburgh, and like I just can't be bothered. But I know that I feel so much better afterwards, and I know there's that long term goal of I would just hate to be beaten by someone else that was fitter than me in racing, because that's something I feel like I can control. But I would run 4 or 5 times a week, sometimes just 5Ks, but I trying to push it up to 10Ks and occasionally half marathon distances. I do a lot of like strength and conditioning, like you say. I try not to, like, weight is quite a big factor in racing. So I'm not that keen to like put on weight, but I try and maintain. So toning is like, it's a lot of like lengthy but kind of light exercises. So it's all about toning muscle. So like every day before lunch, like probably 5 days out of 7, or I try and rotate with running. Some days I'll do like a lightweight session and then go running later. But some days I'll do like a heavier session and I'll work out for an hour and a half. Just with like free weights and my own body weight, and I actually do most of my stuff in the house. Sometimes I go to the gym, but I've got like a few free weights and things, and that works for me, and it makes me feel good afterwards. And I know that for my own mental health, it's like I've achieved today. Even if you've had a terrible day in other aspects, that's something you can control. So like doing a workout or going for a run, that's something I've achieved, and you can write it down, tick a box, I've done that, and that makes you feel good, I think.
Yeah, it's important, isn't it? And it's that endorphins. For me, it's the best drug in the world, mate. Honestly, I absolutely love it. So I try and do something a couple of times a day, even if it's just going for a walk. So I mean, just getting out and getting fresh air. So for those that can't do physical activities, that going for a walk around the block, or push-ups on the stairs, or whatever, squatting while you're making your teas, or all these things that you can do. You don't have to be an absolute gym head. So your work must be quite flexible then, if you've got, because I would imagine you're doing all this training, but you're still working full time, and you're still going away racing and stuff like that. So I wouldn't imagine you would get paid leave for going to Dubai to race in a 24-hour race.
I'm very lucky. I'm a contractor, so I can kind of decide.
I can choose.
When I work and not, and like I that's that flexibility. I know I'm very fortunate, and I know that other people that maybe dream of racing or doing like some sort of sport that is actually quite intensive don't have that flexibility. And I also work from home as well most of the time, so that's, I've got a home office and stuff, and I can dip in and out of that, and you can work later at night if you need to catch up your hours. Like we were just talking about, my workout regime is relatively intensive. And also, like you said, Dubai, I was away for a week. All this testing, practice sessions, briefings, all that. But yeah, I don't think I could do it if I wasn't a contractor. And when I've had contracts in the past, the companies I've worked for have all been very, very supportive and understanding. And to be honest, a lot of them think like, oh my God, I can't believe that this guy's a racing driver. And so I think that's actually worked in my favour. If it was maybe something that was a bit less, I don't know, exciting, then I don't think people would be quite as invested. But I'm very lucky.
Cool. So obviously going back to, because you were saying that you started in Geneta, so just doing a wee bit of looking back on that. So there is a pathway from there. So obviously current F1 star Lando Norris started in Geneta as well. So is that something that you're looking to replicate? How do you see your career going? Do you want to do it full time? Do you want to go up to the next stage and keep rising? So obviously you're going up to GT3 next. What's the levels that you're hoping to achieve?
I started when I was 27 years old, and if you haven't been karting since you're about 6, then there's no chance of getting, really high up effectively. Like I don't know, maybe for me, the dream is Le Mans, the Le Mans 24-hour race.
Right,
okay. That's like, ex Formula One and current Formula One drivers do that race.
Yeah.
That's the level we're talking, and it's 3 drivers per car. And you can race GT3 cars at Le Mans, and that's kind of like the path that I foresee if things went well. It's so difficult to get into though. Like, you're kind of, the way racing works for me at the moment is I have a sponsor, he funds me, and we pay a team to race. It's not like, you have to be good enough to race for the team, but at the end of the day, it's like a customer sport, so it's not like you're plucked, it's not like, oh, you're good enough, the team says you're good enough so you can come and race with us. It's more like a lot of my competitors are very wealthy and successful people, men and women, and they have the money to front it, and that's what they do, whether they're good or really not very good. But Le Mans is a bit different, and that's, the manufacturers pick drivers. So, for example, I race a BMW. BMW do like a shootout at the end of the year. Okay, you're good enough, we'll take you to Le Mans, and that's ultimately what I'd like to do. I don't foresee that happening for years. I've got a long way to go before I'm experienced enough. But this year, racing GT3 is going to be announced this coming week, actually, officially.
Cool. So this will be coming out. I think this is going to come out probably listen to this about 11th of March. So
that's perfect. Yeah. So you're one of the first people to know, really. We're announcing next week that myself and my co-driver Chris are doing GT3 and British GT, stepping up to the big leagues. That's like I said, the car that can go to Le Mans. So from now on, it's kind of trying to exhibit what I can do, and each manufacturer needs to run an amateur driver in GT3 at Le Mans, and obviously I'm classed as an amateur driver, so I want to show that I'm better than the rest. So there's a lot of pressure, but I'm up for the fight,
So obviously it's a step up as well. So what's the biggest difference between, because obviously you were saying that the GT4 is more like it's basically a BMW. You can go along to BMW and buy one and soup it up and put the stickers on it, and it does look like one that you could see in a forecourt. So obviously it's going to be, you're jumping in a racing car now, which is proper big boy stuff. So what's the biggest difference? Obviously, it's not, you've got to jump in and you're not going to have your digital radio and your sat nav and stuff like that. So that's all been taken out, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's there's not many creature comforts in the GT4 or the GT3 car. I would say it's honestly the speed in the GT3 car is mind blowing. I drove it for the first time in a test session on the Thursday before the race weekend in Dubai, and it was a live session, so there was cars on track, and you jump in the car, and the pit stop is, you have to be in the car in 17 seconds. Even doing that is really difficult. Get the driver out, you get in 17 seconds until you go down and get your fuel, and then you're out on track. So strap myself in after getting the fuel and stuff, and there's a clutch on the steering wheel rather than on the ground, like on the floor. And then you use the clutch to move away, and then after that it's just like a flappy paddle, like a sequential box, so you don't need the clutch. So I got away from the fuel area. There's like a speed limit in the pit lane, so I went through the speed limit. I came out of the pit lane, 40 kph, and then you're now unlimited. So I turned the pit lane speed limiter off, went from first gear up to second, and I was like, right, I'm going to absolutely boot it here and see what happens, like foot to the floor. And you're properly strapped into the car. You can barely move, and my head still went back into the seat. Yeah, and I've never experienced that. Even you get that in some road cars, because you've only got the one strap, like your seatbelt, so you kind of roll around a bit. But in a race car, I've never experienced that before because you're so strapped in. And wow, it was just, I accelerated second, third, fourth, and then into turn one. And because it's got lots of wings and aerodynamics, it's grip like you've never experienced ever. Oh man, it is absolutely unbelievable. And your head's there's G-forces, so you're kind of lifting your head to look up the track, and just the acceleration was the first thing that I was staggered by. But I would say the next thing is it's funny. I wasn't so nervous about the actual driving for Dubai for racing this GT3 car. It was the procedural stuff.
Yeah.
So like coming into the pits and getting out of the car and stopping the car on the marks, and the buttons you need to press to even like turn off the car automatically. And then like when you get in the car, there's like a sequence of buttons on the steering wheel. I mean, if you've ever seen a Formula One steering wheel, there's 20 buttons
and dials.
Yeah. So that's what our car's like as well. And there's a sequence to turning the car off. And when they put there's like an air jack that goes into the back of the car and it raises the car so they can change the tires. When that drops and you've got in the car starts automatically based on the sequence that you've done.
Okay.
And if you don't get that right, the car just doesn't start.
Yeah.
And then you've got to do a manual start, and that takes a bit longer, and you waste time. And it was all that sort of stuff. That was the difference. Like the GT4 car and the Ginetta in 2022 were a bit like on go, like a road car. But this is like you have to know everything, that all the procedures, and be prepared, and the speed of everything is so much faster, and it feels a lot more serious. So. Yeah, I would say that's probably honestly more than the driving. Yeah, it's the procedures
or the buttons and that. So the thing that's sticking in my mind here is right. So I'm 6'9", right? So there's no danger I'm getting in your car, right? So I'm assuming that your co-driver is similar dimensions to you.
Yep.
So because otherwise you'd have to put seats back because they'll be
right.
fixed. Seats they'll not be on runners. They'll be fixed.
Yeah. So my co-driver he's about the same height. He's maybe a slightly bigger build. It was a 4-driver car in Dubai, and this year we did it with 4 guys that were roughly the same size. Though one lad was maybe a bit bigger built than the rest of the 3 of us, but on the whole we were roughly the same, so that was fine. So we didn't need to mess about.
I know it's like when I get in the there and the wife's been driving, I'm up at the steering wheel and I'm trying to start the mirror. And, do you know what I mean? So it's not like that, is it? Yeah.
Last year, there was a 4-driver car for the GT4 car. So the idea when we do the Dubai 24-hour race is that it's like it's almost like an extended test session for the year we're going to have in the car. So first time I drove the GT4 last year was in Dubai, then raced it all year.
Yeah.
In British GT, and then the same is going to happen with GT3. So did the Dubai race, kind of gets your head around the car, and then you do the race weekend, the race season. So last year, there was 4 of us, and myself and my co-driver for the year are roughly the same height, as I said, and build, and then the other 2 were significantly smaller.
Yeah.
So we have this thing called like a seat insert, and it's like if you've ever been go-karting, you can get like a cushion to put in, and it's like that, and it's built out of like Kevlar and carbon fiber. So you have to drag it with you if you're putting it in, or when you're taking it out, you pull it out and you throw it over the car so it's not in the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's all those sorts of little things, and that adds time to a pit stop. Having to put the seat insert in, getting the belts around the seat insert. Yeah, but luckily we didn't have to do that in Dubai. That's why the stops are so short, only the 17 seconds.
And that's still bloody quick, isn't it? Like 17 seconds isn't a long time. So
especially when we had a helper to help put our belts on, right? But he's trying to do something, and then you actually can't see your seat belts because there's a 5-point harness. So there's 2 here, 2 at your waist, and then the one that they all connect to, the 5th one, like in between your crotch. And you can't see your belts because your helmet is in the way, and you can't look down because you've got a hands device, like the safety feature, so that your head doesn't move around too much. So you can't look down. So you're just going on feel, and when you're wearing gloves and you're trying to put the belt into these tiny little holes. Oh man, it is stressful. Doing it in 17 seconds, it's pretty tough.
So do you practice that then? Do you have
100 times? Yeah. You have to, otherwise. You would be doing stops in a minute, and you're wasting 43 seconds that you'd have to earn back on track. So it's a lot of practice. The weekend is very full on, even when you're not in the car. We're doing a lot of debriefs and briefings and talking about how we feel, the way the car's handling, doing a lot of we'll have a data engineer that, okay, here's your throttle trace based upon the fastest driver. You're not on the throttle quick enough out of turn 3. Try and work on that, or your throttle is good, or whatever. There's a lot of data work and a lot of practice of things, like I was saying, driver changes. So yeah, it's pretty full and
Do
stuff.
you sit at night? Do you sit and read all that and think about
Yeah,
that before you go to sleep? Or that just
yeah,
mine just be going not all the time.
but I do try and maybe even an hour before bed, stay off the mobile phone a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe watch something on TV that's pretty gentle. Yeah, like just try not to work your mind too much before bed. Especially when you're in a race weekend and you're qualifying or racing the next day, it's quite hard to switch off. But I work quite hard to kind of, as we talked about earlier, like maybe I'll do some exercise earlier on, have a nice dinner, read a book, look at some data, and then that'll do. And then that's me, kind of winding down for bed. Because like sleep is so important, especially in a 24-hour race. So preparing.
In life, it's important, isn't it?
Yeah,
the body's
exactly.
recovering, so we all need a good sleep.
Yep.
And I must admit, I've got quite a good sleep routine and do things before, like you. I turn the phone off.
Yep.
I lie in the acupressure mat and read my book and take magnesium and stuff to try and just chill out. But it's just the way your brain's wired. As soon as you turn that light off, it starts going, "Woo!" So it must be even worse when you've got that running through your head. So
definitely, yeah.
But just going back, so like when you were talking about the G-force and that, and getting the fling back now, so I've got a Golf GTD, right, which is probably the fastest car I've ever had, right?
Yep.
I think it's 184 brake horsepower, and when I put it in sport mode and floor it, that's what I'm like.
Yeah.
So in terms of horsepower, what's the horsepower of your new car that you're about to jump into, your GT3 one?
It's about 550.
That's pretty mad, isn't it?
Yeah, and imagine your Golf GTD on slick tires, like completely slick tires, with better fuel than you can get a fuel pump. The car, it would go faster. So can you imagine what that's like 4 times faster than? It's crazy.
It's crazy. It's scary, but it must be quite nerve-wracking as well, though, when you're sitting in that, especially when your first couple of races and as you step up, just the thought of how much more power you've got underneath your foot.
Yep, and the car is worth £750,000. So,
but you try not to think about that, do you?
No. Well, no, I try not to. Yeah, not since that first stint in my first race. Yeah, it's funny though. Like I think you quite quickly understand a car. Like I think one of the things I'm really good at is learning cars and learning circuits quickly. Like maybe I'm not quite as quick immediately as the guys that are super experienced, but like I'll get 95% of the way there, like within 2 or 3 laps. So I find, maybe you do push the car in the first couple of laps. Okay, the wheels are spinning up there. I'll change the traction control slightly and I'll be a bit more gentle on throttle. And but it's all just like, again, it's just you're just drinking in that information all the time. So even in the first 2 or 3 laps in the Dubai race, and the first time or the Dubai testing, the first time I'd ever driven the car, I wasn't like a million miles away from the pace that I was ultimately gonna be at. I think that's probably the difference, is that once you get to this level, you actually have got to be on the pace quickly, because you don't. It costs lots of money to test. So if you can kind of reduce that time to get used to a car and get quicker, then that's a mindset thing. Like I've just got to push. I've got to push. Okay, I've pushed too hard. I'll ease off a little bit, and then I'll move back up to where I think the limit is. And that's how I try and approach it.
So do you use simulators and stuff like that as well? Have you got a sit-at-home one, or do you go to a factory or something to test it?
I've got one at home, which I find is like okay. It's not the best. It's kind of just like if I'd never been to a circuit before.
Just learn it.
Yeah, exactly. The sim, like the off-the-shelf sims, are pretty good these days. So I can now race. I can do a race on the PC in the car I'm going to be racing this year. That's all the circuits I'm going to be racing, which is amazing. But I do go down to like a professional sim. There's one in Yorkshire that we use, and it's got like that proper. It doesn't move around and stuff, which is, you don't really need that like for the level that we're at. But it's got like that brake feel that you need, because that's like there's no G-forces on a sim, obviously. So like the pedal feel and stuff, that's really important, like to get right, and that's what makes these pro sims so good, that you can actually feel that the car isn't happy. You know, like if you're braking and the brakes are locking up, you feel that in the professional sims, but you don't in the sims at home, unless you've got a really good setup, which I don't have.
Because I watched the Indy 500 one, the NASCAR one, and there was one of the guys, can't remember his name, but that's how he learned to drive.
Oh wow! Right.
He was doing on the Sims, and probably like you at 17, telling your dad, "I'm a really good driver." He's telling his parents, "I'm really good at this."
Yeah.
Aye, right, son. It's a computer game. But he actually went on and started. They put him in a proper sim, and then obviously got the data and that. So they're obviously more specific than
definitely
the wee things that you used to get that stick on your desktop and you plug into your telly when I was a boy. But that's good. So obviously, exciting times ahead, and it'd be great to. I know we tried to get down before, but it's like you say, the races are a couple hundred miles away. So, but it's definitely something we can look at. Maybe getting some of the local boys to come along and support you, and I think we've done that in the past as well. So
so I don't know if you know, Alex, but like we used to last season, I'd give 5 tickets away to local facilitators, and that worked really well, and it was great to get their support. And like if there's a tiny way that I can kind of give, it's not necessarily respite, but like almost like a thank you to the volunteers, facilitators for these local groups, then I'm delighted to be able to do that.
And we've done that, as I say, we've done loads of stuff like that. We're obviously doing the super bikes and stuff like that as well, and we go to basketball and ice hockey, and I think it's good to let the public see as well that we're more than just a Monday night, and obviously we meet every Monday night 7 till 9 and have those sessions across the UK, but we tell our guys, we run a training session the other night and we explain to the facilitators that it is more than a Monday night, because there's that real social aspect. So those 5 guys might never have been to the GT racing, do you know what I mean? So they're experiencing that, and I know when we went to the bikes at Knockhill, they managed to sneak us past the cameras and into the pits, which was fascinating because it's things that you're never going to see. So just experiences like that, and then guys still talk about that, and that's a couple of years ago that we were down at Knockhill. So it's all these different experiences we can give guys to just to encourage them to then go out and help other people as well as a wee reward.
It's absolutely, it's great because we have like signing sessions before the race happens. So like the supporters and the people at the track can come into the pits. It's like only like 20 minutes long, but we sit with our like tables in front of the cars, and they can have a look at the cars, and we sign stuff. So we are quite a popular table because I bring along
the wristbands.
There you go, a wristband. So and I give out the wristbands, and people absolutely love it. And even that, like, you know, there's like kids that take them, like love to take them. Maybe they go along to their parents at night. Oh, what's that? You know, it's just a bit more like awareness, like you're saying. And I intend to do that again this year.
It's really well. It's massive and it's so simple. So that brings us nicely on to why we're actually here, right? Which is, and it has been fascinating listening to what you do. And I just, I kind of honestly do. And I'm not just saying this, but I'm a big motor racing fan. I love watching on the telly and that. So why we're here is we're running a campaign in March called BREW CHAT. So just try to encourage people to open up and talk without having to come, like we said earlier, without coming to Andy's Man Club. They might never come to Andy's Man Club. So I believe we've had over 300 organisations sign up to this campaign through just raising awareness through social media. So hopefully they're all going to utilise it. So Tanya, who you've been speaking to from the office, and the office team have been sending out these packs. So nice wee cardboard box with flyers, wristbands, cards, but there's also like a wee biscuit and a tea bag. Just encouraging people to speak to each other over a brew across their organisation. And they've put in the cards, so we've got conversation cards.
Cool.
So basically, the setup of Andy's Man Club is we run through 5 questions. And the first 3 are always the same, just to encourage guys to open up and talk about some of the stuff they're going through, and then we have a break and another cup of tea because we like our brews at Andy's Man Club. And we then get back together for 4 and 5, which are positive questions, so maybe about doing something for themselves or for someone else. But 5's usually a wee bit of fun, or just a out there question, just to get some random answers and get people thinking. So that's what's on all these cards. Now, the majority of the cards have been used at Andy's Man Club sessions, but there is 1 or 2 random ones that are in there that I don't think we would ever use. So hopefully we don't get one of them. So I'll just cut the pack. We could do a couple of these and we can just see it. Like, so that's quite a good one actually. So whatever card we've picked, there's a reason we've picked it, right? And it's totally random, but the universe has picked this, right? Have you ever had a nickname? What was it and why?
Well,
I can go first if you want. So
I want to go there. Yeah, I want to go.
The worst one I had was when my first job after school, I got called Jiff, which was short for giraffe because I was the tallest guy in the shop. And it kind of stuck for years, so I didn't like it, but hey, it is what it is, isn't it? What about you?
Yeah, that's quite a good one.
Yeah.
But mine's boring. Everyone just calls me MJ, just for my initials. That's in the racing and stuff.
It's confusing when you try and Google you.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson was what I think that's your Insta, isn't it? Magic Johnson.
That's right, Magic Johnson, yeah.
Magic Johnson I remember was a basketball player.
That's it. But I get a lot of Michael Jackson, Mary Jane, so it's not that exciting, but MJ is what everyone calls me still.
Yeah. Nice and simple, right? Again, very apt. If you could hold one world record, what would it be and why? And I think I know where that might go.
It would probably be a lap time somewhere. Probably somewhere like Silverstone or Spa in Belgium or Le Mans. If I could have the lap record around Le Mans, that would be the one for me. That would be pretty historic stuff. I
thought maybe so, because obviously you can't get more iconic than that, can you? There's some cracking tracks, but I think that's the one that everyone's going. We'll do. I don't know. Honestly, don't know. I've thought about this a few times, but it's just there's nothing that I do everything for me. I wouldn't be happy with a world record. If I was competitive like, doing stuff like you, then I'd have stuff like that. But do you know what? It's unofficial, probably, but we already hold it. So we had an ANDYSMANCLUB at halfway up Kilimanjaro in 2000.
Oh wow!
So it was the highest ANDYSMANCLUB meeting ever. And Luke Ambler was there. They started ANDYSMANCLUB. Mate Adam. There was 9 of us done that.
Yep.
So if we could put that into a world record, I think that would be one I was proud of.
I think that's very worthy.
So I think we were at 15,000 feet or something.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
So, and the next one that's come out is, what is one new positive habit can you start before next week?
I would definitely like to meditate more. I did do that and then I kind of dropped it. But I would like to meditate, and I think that's actually, I think with exercising, eating well, and being able to, speak to your friends and family, if you're able to do that, meditating is actually probably one of the final kind of, that's another great thing to do to like heal your mind. And because I used to meditate at the start of my racing career, and then when I was sitting, the worst part of racing is the waiting. So when I was in the lower level championships, you'd be in an assembly area, it was called. So there'd be another race on the go, and then you'd sit in this assembly area before you get on the grid, like to start the race. And you'd be sitting in your helmet, strapped into the car, silence apart from the racing. And it was just felt very, I don't know, it just felt like a very long time. But I would close my eyes and try and like revert back to like that meditation. And I'd like to resume that again. I think that's really healthy for your mind. So I would say meditation.
It's good. I do TM, transcendental meditation. So it's usually 2 times a day, 20 minutes, and it's better than getting asleep. So as you get older, like myself, like a nap in the afternoon's quite good for old folk, isn't it? So I get that boost from just meditating for 20 minutes. It's like I've had an hour's sleep. So my habit is one I've already started this week actually. So I'm one of these. I've got fascinated with biohacking.
Oh wow!
And that's how I started taking the magnesium and stuff. And Luke's got into that as well. So I discover loads of different stuff. So there's many supplements I take, but the latest one's bee pollen. So I've just started taking that in my coffee, and it's quite unusual, but it's supposed to increase focus and energy and stuff like that as well, and it's good for lean muscle. So that's been my habit that I've started this week.
That's a good one.
Just started on Monday, so
Yep,
see how we go on with that. So, we'll just start closing off. So, one thing I ask all my guests is, what one thing do you hope that someone takes out of this conversation today if they're sitting listening?
That you're not alone, and like I said at the start, and I've referred to, if you don't have someone that you feel like you can speak to, go along to an Andy's Man Club session on a Monday night. And, some people maybe don't feel like that's too big a step, but just speak to someone and, tell people how you're feeling and check in with someone. I think that's just so important. It's interesting, the timing of this conversation, because I've got a friend that's going through a wee bit of a tough time, and he's someone who's not necessarily a talker, has a bit of a, not necessarily a front, but just like quite a quiet person. And he's actually started opening up to me, and I feel infinitely better about things that he's opening up to me now, because I know that he's going through a tough time, and I can see that even that's made him feel better already. And that's like very tentative conversations, and that's all it needs to be at the start. It doesn't need to be like, too much too soon, like run at your own pace, but if you can get along to an Andy's Man Club meeting, if you don't feel like you have anyone in your life to speak to, then that's the perfect setting, in my opinion. So yeah, I'd like for that one person to go along, like you say. It just takes that one person.
Yeah, and the right person will be listening to this, and hopefully they'll reach out and check us out. So for anyone listening, Andy's Man Club's a national peer support group. We've got 180 odd venues across the country. Meet every Monday night 7 till 9, except bank holidays. And it's just a safe space for guys to come together and chat about their weeks. And you don't have to talk. There's never any pressure to share as well. So we'll put all the links in the show notes. I'll put all Michael's social media handles in there as well, and you can check out his car, because it is absolutely stunning. I was envying over it the other day when I was looking on your Instagram. So, and the other question I like to ask, and this is one that we've asked previously in Andy's Man Club, but it's something I've been getting my guests to talk about, and it's quite funny. So, what's your guilty pleasure song? What's that one song that comes on, you're not going to skip, and you're going to sing it as loud and as enthusiastic as you can?
I love the song Walk of Life by Dire Straits, and I think it's like a really silly song, but I would never skip that song, and I would scream it in the car if I was in the car. And it's it makes you feel good. I think it's a bit lighthearted. So yeah, I Walk of Life for me.
Brilliant, mate. But seriously, thanks for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to finally sit down and talk to you. So, and it was really interesting. I found it fascinating. So hopefully anyone else is tuning in will find it fascinating, and they can check you out on social media. And all the best with your GT3 racing, and hopefully we'll get time to see you, and we'll definitely get some guys along to see you again and give you a wee bit of support. So, but thanks for coming on, mate.
Thanks very much, Alex. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There we go.